I want those people to be uncomfortable around me. I don't want those frauds hanging out on my events. I don't want to be invited to their podcasts. I don't want to speak on their stages. Welcome back to the 365 Driven Podcast. This is episode 365. Symbolic podcast episode that I've been knowing that's been coming for a few months now, and I've been trying to think about what kind of message I wanted to share with you. And there's been a topic that's really been heavy on my heart, and I wanted to help you guys understand things. And so today it's going to be a more, I guess, aggressive episode than you're used to hearing on the show, but for good reasons. If you are watching this on the live stream, you see the title bar going across, but it says business cults and integrity within the personal development industry. I think this is a very important topic. And I took a week off actually. Last week, I didn't release a podcast. I've been thinking about what I was going to talk about here. And I wanted to bring this to you because I think it needs to raise some awareness of what's going on in the industry from an insider's perspective, give you some insights, and maybe you're going to learn how to identify if you are in a business cult or a health and fitness cult. There's a lot of different things going on. I'm going to share some topics on that. And then finally, at the end of the episode, I will share with some updates and changes that we'll be making to the show after this pivotal 365th episode. We're about 5.5 years in, and it's a top 1% rated, globally ranked podcast. And I appreciate you guys for continuing to show up and support this and sharing it with your friends. And this is going to be a very valuable, information-packed episode. And I think that you're probably going to want to share this with your friends, especially if you've observed them in these kind of situations. So here goes. First of all, let's get back on the topic here. Business cults and integrity, the keyword integrity there in personal development industry. So why do I take this seriously? You're probably wondering, why do I spend time telling you about this kind of stuff and educating you guys? Well, mainly because I feel that the lack of integrity within this industry, and I'm not saying this is for everyone, not say that there's, let's say 20% that are the bad apples, but they are usually the loudest ones and they get a lot of attention and take a lot of your money and left you feel a lot of scams and frauds. And so we're going to be talking about those 20% of the people that are making this industry tough for the rest of us who are trying to do things ethically and with good morals, right? So I take this seriously because when I decided to leave corporate for good in 2015, man, I was watching this personal development space for over a decade by that point. And I started to realize that there's a lot of good players and a lot of bad players. And it seemed like a lot of the bad players were making the most money and really screwing people over and getting them in these kind of scam fests. And we can all see that. We all have a level of skepticism and a lot of doubt anyways. But when we start to see this, our red flags go up for most of us. But unfortunately, a lot of you, thousands of you, it doesn't really seem to register. So this episode is hopefully going to raise your awareness on these things. So for me, I take this seriously because I really put my career and my goals and my purpose on hold for about 1.5 years. Because as I was observing in 2016, and I knew that I wanted to help small business owners and I wanted to help people do things ethically based on my own experience, I still knew that if I was going to enter that arena with all these personal development people and coaches and business coaches, that being the new guy to that industry, I was still going to be held to the same lower level of skepticism that anybody that's new to an industry is going to feel. And man, I had a lot of excuses not to do that because I had money, I had success. I didn't really want to be on camera or be in the fame or the spotlight. You guys have heard that backstory. And so I kept talking myself out of doing this because I didn't want to be lumped in with a bunch of dirt bags that I've been observing for years in the industry. And so it was really around mid 2017 when 365 Driven as a brand was finally launched, because at that point I'd realized I had to get through my own mental blockages and barriers on being able to put myself out there and work on myself and hire speaking coaches and things like that that you've heard me talk about. But at that point, I said, hey, you know what? There's enough negativity in this industry that we need to put some people in here that are doing things for the right reasons, who have real results, teaching people how to start, scale, and exit businesses based on their own experience. And so that put me on hold for 18 months of my life. And I knew that that was the primary reason keeping me out of that business. And that's why I take this seriously. I mean, when you put any amount of time of your life investing in these kind of things and you put it on hold, it does leave a sour point on your life. And so the other reason, the primary reasons, there's two more that I talk about, these lack of integrity and things like this in these industries and this coaching, all let's say all coaching and consulting professions. We're going to lump these all in together. I'll give you some examples in a moment. But the other reason is that I want to raise your awareness of these shenanigans and games and frauds and scams and tactics that are being played on you on a daily basis by a lot of big names out there. And so you need to become aware of these kind of tactics because they're being used against you. And when you become aware of them, hopefully you're no longer ignorant. Ignorant just means lack of understanding or knowledge. It's not mean you're stupid. It means you're ignorant. Now, if you choose to proceed after you've been aware and you're learned all these tactics, then you cross from ignorant into stupid. Just being real here. So I'm going to educate you on these things. And so the other reason is that I don't know all the frauds. We don't know all the frauds. This is a very big industry, this coaching profession and all these different niches and categories of coaching. Being a newer person, when I got started, I didn't know who all the frauds were. And so how do you figure all this stuff out without spending hours and hours and hours? And you should, when you're thinking about hiring somebody, by the way, doing the background research on all these people, especially the ones with the biggest names, the biggest stages, the biggest shows. Maybe they're New York Times best-selling authors, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do background checks on these people to see what they achieved before that book became popular, right? And so I didn't know who all the frauds were. So I figured the best way to get their attention is by exposing the tactics that they put out there on a daily basis, because I want those people to be uncomfortable around me. I don't want those frauds hanging out on my events. I don't want to be invited to their podcasts. I don't want to speak on their stages. So if they see that I'm creating content about this kind of stuff, exposing the things that they're doing that you're about to hear about, I don't want them around me. And it's worked really well. It's worked exceptionally well. Let me rephrase that, because I'm not standing on their stages and I'm not hanging out with these kind of people. And I'm not vouching for people who have screwed up backgrounds in their lives and are still perpetuating the same just illegal bull crap, right? And so it's done really well. So if that's a tip for you, if you're about there and you're creating your personal brand and your messaging, if you don't want to hang around with frauds or sit at the table with a bunch of frauds or cons, you start sharing this information like these kind of things, they won't want you around them at their table because they only want people that are just like them. Because let's be real, great people attract great people, and cons and scammers all kind of lump together like piles of crap. And so here's how we get into things. So we got all these different types. Like, who are all these people doing all these crazy things, Tony? Right? I mean, let's start with alpha male boot camps. You guys seen this stuff? Go search alpha male boot camps or fake alpha men and stuff like that on YouTube or even on TikTok or Instagram. And you'll see hours and hours of footage of these guys that are being screamed at and humiliated and embarrassed because they're paying these guys $15,000 to $20,000 on a weekend to go get screamed at and belittled. And I hate to say it, I think the guys that really sign up for that kind of stuff to be humiliated and made fun of and called a bunch of derogatory names, man, I think that money would be better spent investing in a therapist. Let's be real. If you think that you're lacking some kind of alpha thing within you, man, go join martial arts, go do something physical, go challenge yourself physical, go invest in that, get a therapist. You don't need these guys screaming at you. Now, that's not to say all of these boot camp type trainings are negative. Some of them are exceptionally, like, really, really good. Here's the difference. The good ones will actually come at you from a place of support, encouragement, mental toughness, wanting to make you sure that you're just more certain of yourself. They're pouring confidence into you, and they're challenging you, and they're also giving you new skills. Maybe you're doing some hand-to-hand combat training, or you're doing some firearms training, something like that. That's adding something to your skill, to your confidence, and they're pouring into you from a coaching perspective. The negative ones are the ones that are trying to break you down, and they're trying to be, act like they're military. And most of those guys running those things aren't even in the military, haven't been in the military. And in that regard, I'd like to thank my dad in this moment, U.S. Marine veteran from Vietnam War. Thank you, Dad, for not having to. Thank you for making me not have to spend $18,000 to $20,000 to go get screamed at by a bunch of alpha men coaches so I could feel better about myself by being a man. Like, thank you for that, Dad. I appreciate that. Saved me a lot of money, a lot of grief, and and hopefully that therapist at the same time. Now, we also have different examples like women's health and wellness cults. I've had a few clients and a lot of friends that have joined these things that are disguised as health and wellness for women. I haven't really seen these things for men. That's why I'm just saying the women. And they get in and they realize like it's kind of a cult. It's kind of a sometimes it turns into a big old network marketing pitch or an ML or MLM or a recruiting fair. And then the owners or the leaders of these groups kind of make you feel guilty or shamed into doing things. And I'm going to teach you all these tactics in a moment about these cult things. I've been doing these research, but you see a lot of evidence in that kind of stuff, even though it could be a topic that should be positive, depends on the leader. We're going to get into that. Also see these cult-like behaviors showing up in sales training groups and things like that, right? Especially those leaders that have been in the car sales, used car sales backgrounds. Like, think about that. Historically, used car salesmen there's not a really good reception to that anyways. Why would you want someone that's teaching some industry that has maybe a 69, 60, 70% approval rating on salesmanship to be coaching your organization that's not even related to that same ministry? Now, if you're just trying to sell cars and you want to use the same tactics and fear-based things and scarcity and all these things to make people sign for these 72-month, 84-month loans at high interest rates that they can't afford, then maybe you should hire the sleazy people to come train those kind of things because that's what you're really doing anyways. So go learn from the best, right? Anybody else that's learning sales training, why don't you hire someone that's actually sold not just millions, maybe billions? There's a lot of industries that are doing things ethically and morally, and they're selling things, and they've got a lot higher results and also a lot higher customer satisfaction on that sales process. So look at the backgrounds of the people you're trying to hire to teach you sales. Do you really want those tactics in your business? I don't know. Something you should question for yourself. The next type of gurus I see are the flex and the flash gurus. These are the guys that will go rent the Lamborghinis and they'll section 179 a Lamborghini Urus and stand in front of that and doing all kinds of stupid stuff. They're renting mansions in Miami and just trying to have the backdrop. These guys have no substance. Go do the background on these people and you'll find that they never achieved anything in their lives except renting Lamborghinis and eventually making enough money to have multiple things and Rolls Royces. And they're really selling you hope because they're just showing this flashy lifestyle. And you think that, wow, if I just follow this guy or this girl, I'll be able to have the same lifestyle. They're just selling you a bunch of nonsense. They don't have any previous business experience. They're teaching business with no business experience. Some of them have prison records. Are you kidding me? Like, all these people are just selling you hope and lifestyle. Like, that only goes you so far there, right? You're just wasting your money on these people. Again, and also let's talk about the fitness gurus. There's a lot of fitness gurus out there for men and women that are preaching all these results, but they're not really sharing the actual things that make them have the physique that they have. And a lot of you men out there watching these gurus and in the fitness space who are all jacked up on steroids and just telling you like it's TRT, because I think that's a really, really great rebranding of steroids, calling things TRT, and no one's really honest with the results, but you can always see before and after when they got on it and they're like super jacked. And you can also see when they get back off of it because they kind of get deflated and then their ego gets deflated and they got to go pump those numbers back up again. It's just a weird cycle. Why can't people just be authentic? If you need TRT, use it. If you don't need it, don't use it. But if you're using it to try to get an advantage and trying to get ahead and cheat get the gains a lot sooner, then you're doing it for the wrong reasons. At that point, again, go back to the therapist and ask yourself why you're doing that stuff that could be causing long-term harmful effects to your body because you want to look good on the internet. Don't make sense to me. Be authentic there. And again, we're going to get into business cults. We've seen a lot of these different large organizations of business owners, and I've got one myself. My group has 4,000 members right now. But I don't run things like a cult because I understand the difference between building a community and using a different communication style to really encourage the participation versus shaming people and making it all about making profit and revenue and recruiting and all these different things. So it kind of goes back to the intentions. When crimes are being committed and you go to court, they look at the actions that were taken or were documented as the crimes, But then they also look back at the intentions. What's the intent? It always goes back to the intent. Was the intention good or was the intention bad? Positive, negative. If they're low moral values, which is good and bad, right or wrong, then how are they going to understand if they're doing things with good intentions? So here's the main things that goes back for the character issues, the character flaws of the leaders of these kind of business cults. First of all, they manipulate rather than influence. And here's the weird thing about that. When you learn the tactics of influence and communication, the intent is the only difference between manipulation and influence. They are the exact same skill sets, but what's the intention behind that? If you cannot learn to observe the agenda and understand their intentions and see evidence of their intentions from their past clients, past employees, past staff members, how they speak of those people after they've gone through their programs, you're going to start to get really good clues on what their intentions and their agenda truly are. Are they really there to serve you? Or are they really there to serve their bank account? We see the differences, right? And so these leaders of these business cults, they'll read certain books with these negative intentions while they're reading them, right? Nobody starts good and goes, "Oh, let me get corrupted halfway through this book." So they'll read books like, Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power. Did you realize that Robert Greene was on the show and he talked about how controversial his book was when it came out 25 years ago? And to this day, it's actually the number 2 book that's banned from federal prisons. Prisons will not allow this book to be on their bookshelves in their library because they are so afraid of this tactics of the 48 Laws of Power getting into the mindset of the prisoners that they're going to be using it with proven negative intentions, right? People that are felons in prison, they may use this for the wrong intentions better than the right intentions. And so they ban the book. But these leaders will study that kind of stuff. They'll also study Machiavellian things. Have you heard that? Let me explain what that is. So when someone describes Machiavellian tactics, that's referring to the behavior that is, I got some notes here for you. I came prepared. So when someone is Machiavellian, they are typically referring to behavior that is cunning, scheming, and unscrupulous, especially in politics or advancing one's career. This term originates from the name of Niccolo Machiavelli, an Italian Renaissance political philosopher who wrote The Prince, which is a comprehensive system that is often interpreted as advocating for pragmatic and ruthless strategies for political power. So in a broader sense, being called Machiavellian implies that they are willing to use deceit, manipulation, and exploitation to achieve their goals, often disregarding morality and ethics. It suggests a focus that ends on justifying the means where success and power are prioritized over honesty and integrity. Does that sound like anybody that you've come across or you've learned from and you've described them now as Machiavellian? Well, now you understand that they study these guys. They're not randomly being labeled this. They study these tactics and they deploy these. Guys, these tactics that I'm about to share with you have been around for centuries. People have been using, as long as people have been around and people have been struggling for power and wanting to control and manipulate people, these tactics have been around. And so some of you may go through this list and you go, holy crap, like I'm in a group like that. Or my coach or my consultant is like that. You may feel that, and you're going to feel a little bit of defensiveness when you hear these things. And that's normal. And it's because it's a whole lot easier for people to deny that they've been taken advantage of than it is to admit that they were taken advantage of. And so let me repeat that. It is a lot easier for people to deny that they were taken advantage of or deny that they were wrong than to finally admit that they were taken advantage of. And if you're doing things for the right reasons for yourself, you shouldn't be defensive about hearing any of these things because these are very powerful tactics. And, maybe there's even a chance that one of you listening has ill intent and you're going to learn these tactics. I can't stop you, but I'm still going to express the awareness that I want to raise for the rest of the listeners to understand how to identify these things to safeguard themselves from these things being used against you. So here, I did some research on cult leadership tactics. Guys, there's a lot of research done on this. There's books on the subject. You can go on YouTube and search that phrase, cult leadership tactics. You'll find all sorts of videos And I watched hours and hours and hours of things, and I read the books and I read the research papers and I took some notes and I started to formulate a list of 10 things that I'm going to share with you that appear in these cult leadership tactics, but also appear in these business cults that I mentioned earlier on. So, first of all, let's get into this. The leader of the cult is a charismatic person and it attracts attention. Usually, he or she has a level of intrigue or mystery about themselves. They can be unpredictable at times. They'll sometimes label themselves as prophets or that they can have on almost godlike characteristics or skills, right? I can see the future. They say things like that. I called this before it was going to happen. I'm a prophet, right? I've got amazing skills. Like nobody's ever been a better speaker than I have in my life. Okay, you're starting to get that ego and charismatic thing that attracts a lot of attention. Social media, they're the ones that are yelling the loudest, getting attention, or they're just portraying themselves as super wise and things like that. See, these are things you should be clued in on right away. So, number two, the leader also knows how to grow an audience of followers. There's a certain thing that most people, unfortunately, are missing is that X factor, that thing that creates the leadership gene that makes people want to follow you or pay attention to what you're saying. This is something that can be learned, but these people have already mastered this. Okay. So they know how to grow the audience of followers because for the purpose of a cult or to increase their own wealth or power or authority, they understand that it's actually easier to get people to join when they're in a financial struggle or they feel loneliness. So think about that. We've all felt financial struggle. We've all felt times of loneliness. Maybe some of you are unfortunately going through that right now. If you are, if your business is struggling, if things are struggling in your life, you're going to think about, man, what kind of group could I join to struggle together? We can go through this together. Well, cult leaders know this. That's why their marketing, they attract people who are struggling or lonely or, hey, you don't fit in. You can come with us. They understand this game. So understand that. Number three, there's a defined business model that generates huge profits for the leader. And sometimes the lieutenants and the people that directly report to him or her. These are usually defined there's defined levels within these organizations as well of membership levels. So usually they start from a low priced base group, the small group, the introduction group, and then they have the mid-range level of membership, and then they got the high ones and maybe even a higher one, like one-on-one, like you get to fly on my private jet type membership, levels. And so each of these levels seems more prestigious than the level below it. And you hear these messages and you go to their events and you hear about, oh, so and so and so and so, and they got a different color name tag. And they understand that they can manipulate you by wanting you to get into those next levels. Why? Because they can earn more money if you climb these levels. Think about that. Each of these levels is more prestigious. So they serve to level up. They're going to make more money if they get you doing that. So another thing, number four, the psychology of us versus them. This us versus them stuff is deployed heavily within the organization. The leader teaches the members to distrust anyone outside of the group. Hey, they're outsiders. They're not your family. We're the family, right? Leader teaches all this kind of thing. So they make the members feel that they're a part of an elite private club and that they are better than the people outside of the club. Think about how odd this is. I just told you that these people are usually struggling or they're lonely, but this leader has convinced you, like you struggling business owners or some kind of elite group, that we're all elite in here. It's like, does that really make any sense to you? It doesn't to me. Number five, the leader introduces insider speak within the community. These are trite little phrases or sayings that are often repeated by the leader and show up in the external words and writings of the members. This insider speak is a way of signaling to other group members that you're part of the club. It's the if you know, virtual handshake. You see evidence of these things. People that are in this club, they'll making their own content. They'll put those little trite phrases that the leader and the other group members use to kind of signal like, I'm in that club. Guys, this is mental manipulation. I don't have any insider phrases in 365 Driven, 4,000 members. You don't see the members of my group out there using stupid little phrases. I don't even have to repeat them. You're probably already thinking of some. You may be even in a group and you're using some of those. You see the leader keep saying them. They put them in every post that they make, and you're repeating these things, and you're not even really thinking about, you're actually being mentally manipulated because you think that by using those, you're showing praise to the leader, which is what they want. And you're signaling to the other members that I'm one of you. Don't play that game. Don't fall into the game. Use your own words. Use your own thoughts. Number 6, members are manipulated to remain in the club through gained notoriety and acknowledgement within the club. They're promoting you. If you've been in there longer, they're saying you do all these things. They're handing you awards, and these aren't necessarily bad things for all communities. I think you should acknowledge and reward people who are contributing, but they're doing this to keep people in the club, and they're not really just being recognized because they're making the other people in the club feel like those are better members because they're contributing more money and more time to this group. And, they make people unfortunately feel like they're part of something much more important and bigger than themselves. And so people refuse to leave because they feel unsafe to leave that group. They've seen the backlash. They fear that backlash. They don't want these people that they've been grouped in with to say negative things about them if they leave. So they stay. Number 7, the leader accepts no criticism, and any dissent is punished publicly. That one's a really deciding factor for these people, right? They don't accept criticism, even if it's constructive, even if it's respectful, which it should be anyways. They don't want to hear it. And they will let you know publicly that they don't want to hear it. And these naysayers and the skeptics are removed immediately. Even if you've spent years and thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars, if you haven't been aware of this, and you say one negative thing or you disagree with the leader, they're gonna let people know in a public manner that they disagree, and they're gonna get you out of that club by shunning you or banning you or kicking you from the group. And those who are in the club, who remain in the club when you leave, they're encouraged to no longer associate with you. They're encouraged to no longer support you, because you're a former member and you're now one of those outsiders that no one should trust. And on social media, these leaders and these people that are drinking the Kool-Aid, which is a cult phrase, they'll even block you sometimes. They'll even unfriend you because you're not in the club with them anymore. And so, a former member's stellar reputation may also experience a smear campaign, especially if you come across as a whistleblower and you're trying to whistleblow and expose what was going on inside that club. Sometimes these leaders will even threaten you or even issue you legal threats, lawsuits, because you're just telling the truth, because they think that they're just going to be able to scare you into not saying anything. I can't tell you how many dozens of messages I receive from people in these different various business cults that reach out to me after they leave, and they're so disheartened because they poured their energy and money into these leaders, and then they were treated like crap after they got out, and they wanted to say something or make a public complaint because they couldn't do it inside the group because they got kicked out and the guy didn't take any leadership criticism. And as soon as they mentioned it to something or name was mentioned, they would get served a threat to get sued. Now, is that some kind of leader that you really want to be a part of, that organization? You should ask around. And if the answer is yes, you need to go see that therapist I mentioned because you got something going on with you, that you're sticking around, got Stockholm syndrome or something. Can't figure out like who's good or bad. Morality is broken, or maybe your own ethics and morality are broken so bad that you can't tell who's good and bad. So those of you that are aware, you shouldn't be hanging around those kind of groups. So here we go. Number 8, 1 to 10 here. Each cult has regular gatherings or ceremonies. These are opportunities to publicly praise the best members and encourage more donations or leveling up the ranks by investing more, and to allow the members to visually see that they are not alone. Maybe they're doing monthly meetings or quarterly meetings or things like that, or these huge events, and they're wanting you to get in there and feel the energy of the room because they are addicted to go to these events. I like these events. I like events. You like events. But they're doing it for manipulation purposes. It's not always just to hang out and network and the things that they say that is. It's because they want you to feel like you're part of something, and they're tapping into that loneliness in the community. And it's cool. Like, you know what? The people that are in most of these groups, they're good people. They don't know that this stuff is being perpetuated on them. They don't understand these tactics that are being deployed. I don't have any animosity for the people that are stuck in these kind of business cults. In fact, I'd feel kind of sorry for them because they're lacking awareness of this kind of stuff. And so a lot of times people will just stay in because of the community, even if they know the leader's a dirtbag. That doesn't make sense to me, right? Those people, if they're really good people in that community, they should still be part of your community when you decide to leave. And if they're not, they were never good people in the first place. So that may be a test. Maybe you announce that you're leaving just to see the real reactions of the people that are in that community, so you can quickly remove the ones that you know are fake, frauds, and are drinking the Kool-Aid. So at these events, you should expect the insider speak that I mentioned earlier. Like, all these little conversations, people will be using these phrases and terms and things like that are insider because they're encouraged to. And even the leader, when that leader, he or she, gets on stage, you can guarantee their speech will be either introducing you to new insider speak that'll be part of their social media content and their email content, or they'll be really hashing in on the stuff that they already established because they know, and they're not telling you like, hey guys, here's a new phrase we're going to use. No, they're really crafty because they understand Machiavellian. They just understand that if I just say it enough, people will pick it up and then they'll start using it because they're like a little parrot. And I subconsciously programmed to say these things. I never told them to say these things, but they just keep repeating them now. And they do it to each other, and they showcase who they are. And guys, this is all manipulation. Watch out for this kind of stuff, right? Number 9, the leader eventually earns enough to invest in real estate, which serves as a formal gathering place or a compound. Like, we've all heard cult compounds. We've had them in Texas here. We've seen those kind of things, right? David Koresh and things like that. So you may be thinking, well, my business coach doesn't have a compound, but understand that a compound just means a formal gathering place that they use over and over and over. Maybe they purchase a facility or a warehouse or something that they have these frequent gatherings and ceremonies. Understand that if they can do that, you should be paying more attention to that kind of stuff. It's not normal. It's not common to do these kind of things, right? There's an agenda behind it that you may not be aware of. Hopefully you kind of understand now. Like, that's their compound. Just, it may be a building or a warehouse or a stadium or whatever, right? Understand that's what it is. Finally, number 10, the leaders of these cults would never, ever, ever dare to reveal these tactics that I'm talking about to their members because they profit from your low awareness. They profit from your low awareness. Do you think that any of those guys would actually come on a podcast and explain those 10 points that they're using to you on a daily basis to get you to join their groups, and also to get you to recruit your friends into those groups? Because if you recruit your friends, you make a little commission and you look better to the group, and you start to elevate your little ranks because so-and-so recruited and brought in 10 of his members to do this. So we're going to put them on stage and make everybody jealous. Like, they're manipulating you. Guys, you hear this word a lot. This is important stuff. So here's how you evaluate. How do we evaluate these groups, right? I'm not saying to come join my group and all these things, but I want you to know how to evaluate if you're in one of these groups, and how to spot these frauds and these con men and con women, right? First of all, do some research to see how well their relationships are with their former staff members, their employees, their former employees, key, and also, more importantly, their former clients. If you're thinking about becoming a client or a customer, you should want to hear the general consensus from their former clients, right? So these ill-intentioned gurus will always leave a path of destruction behind because they only pretend to care about you while you're still paying them or you're doing things for them. So I would say use Google to search their history, ask around, and never ask advice from those who are still active in their groups, right? Because those are the people that are still drinking the Kool-Aid. They're still active. They're still paying these people. They're not aware of the tactics being used. So is their advice really going to be unbiased? No, it's not. You should probably ask advice from people who are formally in the group, what their true opinions were, Some of them have left for good reasons. Maybe they don't have a bad experience, and that's what you want to hear, right? But if they tell you the truth, you should be paying attention to those people. So think about that kind of stuff. So what do we do with all this? I want to give you some outlets. How do we change this, Tony? How do we make more integrity in the personal development industry? So first of all, if you're in one of these cults, or you suspect that you're in one after hearing this, you've now become aware. You've now crossed in from ignorant to aware. If you stay in, you go from aware to stupid because you know better. Now, you may feel of defensiveness, like I mentioned earlier. It's, so and so, that this cult leader, he's really helped me and he got my mindset right and he taught me some business. Guys, you can learn that from reading books. You can learn that from watching YouTube. You can go talk to the therapist I keep mentioning. You can go hire a coach that actually specializes in those kind of tactics and you'll get the same results. So don't think that just because this guy has done a few good things for you, because I think even dirtbags can teach you things. I've learned things from dirtbags, but also learned a lot of things that I didn't want from dirtbags, right? But that's not a reason to stay or support these kind of people. So you just have to decide, like, if you're in one of these groups, like, how do you change things? Get out of that group. Leave that group. If you think that there's better things to go spend your time and money elsewhere. Number two, become more vocal about these tactics and these frauds and these cons. It's your duty to become a protector. Think about this. If you've ever been bullied or had people that were trying to hold you back in life, you got three choices to do something here. Some people choose just to remain a victim their entire life. They get bullied and they just choose, like, I'm just going to take the victim mindset and just ride that out till the sun's down. It's sad. I hate to see that. The other people would be someone that was bullied or pushed down. They become the protector. And that's what you want to become. You want to be one that stands up to bullies because you've seen these kind of things. If you've been scammed or you've had stuff stolen from you, you should be the protector. You should be helping other people avoid that kind of scenario. And that's who I am. I was bullied in grade school, and I remember the first time fighting back and hitting back, I became the protector in that role. And that's why I teach you guys kind of things like this, because I want to protect you, right? The third option here is people become a bully. People who have been bullied or held back, they figure out the powers and they become the bully themselves. And that is usually the type of character that runs these kind of groups. They are bullies, and that's why they treat people the way they do. So become more vocal about this kind of stuff. You don't have to mention names to raise awareness. Don't think that you got to get into mudslinging and mentioning names. Think about this. I haven't mentioned a single name this entire episode, but I guarantee everyone that's watching this or listening to this, based on the descriptions I've made, you visualize somebody that's in your path or in your social media, in your life, maybe current or present or past, that fits those descriptions. So I was able to raise awareness without mentioning names. So why can't you do that? Raise your awareness, become more vocal of this, become the protector. Number three, how do you solve this stuff? Well, first of all, stop following and supporting these people. Even if you know that they may put out interesting content or they may have an interesting podcast, whatever it is, if they're getting any piece of your attention, realize that that's feeding them. That's feeding their ego. It's feeding their authority, and it emboldens them and keeps them doing it for more and more. So unfollow them, block them if they're like bothering you. Quit supporting these people because you're just feeding into the chaos. Like, they may be a flaming train wreck of a show that they're doing things, but they're frauds, they're cons, they're stealing from people, they're morally bankrupt. Like, quit supporting them, quit watching their stuff. In fact, as soon as you take a pause here and just go delete those people now if you're listening to this. And so as a wrap up on this kind of stuff, I want you to understand that I am not excluded from this. In fact, I challenge you to go do your checks on my own background. If there ever comes a time where I start to put greed above morality or my own purpose, or I start doing scammy things myself, I expect you to call me out on it. In my 20 plus years of business, I've always strived to do my best. Think about this. I've had 3 7-figure companies that I've started, and I've had zero chargebacks, millions of dollars processed and zero customer chargebacks. I'm proud of that because out of my core values that dictate my life and also my business, my most important core value is do the right thing, not the easy thing. And so doing the right thing sometimes costs me a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of frustration, but it's the right thing. There's always the right thing to do. A lot of these other people just do the easy thing, or they do the thing that they don't want to do anything. And that's why they get these chargebacks and these frauds, and they're okay with stealing money because if they steal it from one person, what's the big deal? I can steal it from hundreds of other people. No big deal. Nobody's saying anything. I could threaten them with lawsuits, right? So I'm not excluded from this. If you heard this list and you see me doing these kind of things, I want you to question what my intentions are, what my intent is, what my agenda is, because I already understand I'm playing the long game here. Like there's a reason I've got customers and clients have been doing business with me for over 20 years now. Some of these private coaching clients that I have right now, I was their customer 20 years ago, and now they're my customer. So you don't get that way of building your reputation for decades by screwing people over. So yeah, go do your background checks, go Google me, go figure out, go ask people that used to be clients of mine. I would like to hear the feedback myself. So understand that I am not immune to this and nobody is. Even the person you're listening to, the coaches you're hiring or considering hiring, they should not be immune to this no matter how good they look. Go do the background checks, go look, right? So let's shift gears here. I know that was a lot of heavy gravity, but it's a very important subject that I hope you guys will share this episode so people become more aware, because I need you all to become the protectors of this kind of information to get people more aware. So your friends and family are not taken advantage of. They're not paying attention to people with morally bankrupt lives, and they're just doing things that are unethical. If you're trying to improve yourself, these people do not belong in the personal development industry. None of them, right? So let's talk about, since we're in episode 365, changing the subject here, some changes that are coming up on the show. I enjoyed my week off. I took a week off last week. I didn't drop an episode for the first time in over 5.5 years. I just said, how do you know what? I want to take a week off, really think about this episode and some of the changes that I've been also considering going forward. And so with 365 Driven Podcast, you can expect more gritty and challenging conversations, just like the one you heard. These are topics that are hard for people to talk about because they're fearful of these kind of things. And also, I want to bring on some guests that will challenge me a little bit. I'm tired of everything just being enjoyable. I want to have some challenges. I want some people that are actually prepare as much as I have for these debates. I love these kind of things. Also, you can expect some new branding and cover art. Anybody that's looking at the cover art of this show, that photo was probably from 5.5 years ago, back when I would wear the blazers and the suits and things like that on stage. And, my personal brand has developed over the years. And I may wear a blazer on a very special occasion, but I am not going to wear that at every event. And I rarely wear those after corporate when I had to wear a lot of those blazers and ties. I like the clothes that I wear, the brands, the 365 Driven merch. I like my hats because I'm more of an athlete and a coach, and I like to have the active wear, and I like to be comfortable. And so that's who I am. And it's always who I've been. So you can expect the photo to change and things like that. So also be revising the current introduction song and the extra. Those are a little long to me. I want to reword those a little bit. I like the music. I still like the music, the theme music. So I love it. I love the bass hits, especially if you listen to it on a system. But I'm going to revise things. And going forward, I would like to do more in-person interviews, especially with some of these larger guests that I've on the show. Just fly out, do the interviews with them in person, get these things, because I would also like to grow the YouTube channel a bit more. Been slacking a couple months, I'll be real. Just been focused on this event. We're leaving for Costa Rica on Friday to go do our 7th event. But YouTube is something I know I need to take more serious, and my mentors are teaching me that I should be putting more time into that myself. And so in-person interviews always look better than the Zoom screens or the StreamYard screens and things like that. So you can expect that kind of stuff. And so also a tactical thing, maybe you podcast hosts should be paying attention to, is when all these podcasts were first starting getting kicked off in like 5 years ago, most people made a habit of dropping their episodes on Monday mornings, right? Like, get started, like, let's hit this thing. And as I started to observe that within the first year, I started to realize that any app that you listen to your podcast, when you subscribe to a bunch of shows, the top the top one on that list is just whichever one was released later. Like, the newest episode that was released gets stuck at the top of the stack. So if you release something at 4 a.m., it's going to get buried by the other shows that people subscribe to that maybe come out at 8 a.m. or 10 a.m. and so on. And so it's like, you know what? Screw Monday. Everybody's coming out on Monday. I'm going to move my show to Tuesday. And that worked really well for about 2 years. And other people started to finally catch on, like, hey, everybody's fighting for Monday attention. Like, let's go Tuesday. Well, I've been watching that for the last 6 months, and nobody's really releasing things on Wednesday. So you can expect these episodes will shift from Tuesday to Wednesday, because even this past Wednesday, I subscribed to about 12 shows. I don't get to listen to all of them, but I subscribed to them. I looked at Wednesday. There was zero shows that I subscribed to, which a lot of you probably listen to, were on Wednesday, unless it's a show with multiple episodes per week. Those things kind of come out with random anyways. But those who do one episode a week, like, nobody was doing Wednesdays. So if you made it this far in this episode, there's a free tip for you. Maybe you should consider trying to dominate Wednesdays instead of arguing over who drops first on Monday and Tuesday, right? So with that, thank you for your continued support. Episode 365. Crazy to think about that. When I got started, that just seems so far away. Yeah, it took 5.5 years to get here, but here we are. And I still love what I do, and I still love doing this. I'm going to keep podcasting as long as I continue to enjoy it, because I'm playing the long game. I'm 51 years old. It could be several years of this kind of stuff that I still enjoy. So I appreciate you spending some time with me. I hope you got those good tactics. If this episode has helped you raise awareness about the business cults and all these different shenanigans that we see, please share this episode. Send it to your friend. Directly send it to your friends. Tag your friends in these things, because they need to hear this stuff so they don't spend thousands of dollars with these fake gurus doing stupid stuff. So with that, see you on the next episode.